Warning, this review is filled to the brim with positivity and cuss words. If you're not cool with this, then leave in the next 3 seconds. This premiere is fucking amazing! God tier even! Seriously, this episode did everything it needed to do and more! Best of all, it nailed Twilight's character. Yeah, turns out that wings plus horn don't equal a complete loss in personality. Right? Fandom? Twilight was still her adorable self, being nervous about her new responsibilities to fill and keeping her behaviors to a normal level considering the situation. One behavior that really stood out in this premiere, which I think is going to be a running trend throughout season 4, is Twilight's personal view of equality to the other princesses. I get the sense that Twilight doesn't yet view herself as Celestia, Luna, or Cain's equals. I think Twilight will gradually start to lose this notion. Her current view is to be expected considering she spent years underneath the princesses. Though I think Celestia is going to be making subtle hints to Twilight that they are equals. This seems obvious when Celestia addresses Twilight as Princess Twilight, when she could have easily just said Twilight. Further, the writers showed they're listening to us when they present Discord's character. After Keep Calm and Flutter On, many bronies were concerned that Discord would no longer be a lovable jackass. Princess Twilight, however, presents Discord's character beautifully. He's still manipulative, snarky, and full of tricks. His presentation actually made it seem like he's going to be better reformed than purely chaotic. Before Reformation, Discord was just a one-note character who was always going to be spreading chaos for a short time because we knew he'd be eventually defeated. Now, however, we still get Discord facilitating chaos without any concerns that he'll suddenly be turned back to stone. His intentions are somewhat of a mystery, which adds to a wonderful dose of speculation. Though I think I figured out his intentions in this episode. He was trending a line between chaos and order, trying to be orderly just enough to lower the main six's suspicions. And it helped that Fluttershy was willing to support him, or else he'd be turned to stone pretty quickly. The best example of this behavior is when Twilight returns from the Everfree Forest. She immediately demands that Discord help the ponies. Discord helps, but he wasn't going to let Twilight continue to boss him around. Nope, instead he gets inside her head, metaphorically and literally, causing Twilight to leave so he can continue to enjoy his precious chaos. Twilight and Discord were the obvious standouts, but there was one more character that was given considerable focus. Applejack, of all ponies, stood out a lot in this episode. From her first statement talking about the elements of harmony to her statement in the Everfree Forest. It becomes extremely apparent from her first line, Princess Twilight, and onward, that Applejack is, of the main 6, making most of her decisions based on the new status quo. It's for this reason that she makes her decision in the Everfree Forest and seems out of character to many. I think that's bullshit though. Applejack is, in my opinion, one of the most outspoken members of the main 6. She's also one of the most reasonable, and tends to say what's on a lot of other main 6's minds. It's because of this that she acts almost like a second leader to the group, saying statements others might not have the nerves to say. We saw this in Canterlot Wedding, Lesson 0, and Friendship is Magic Part 2. This is typically showed as a strength, but not here. For the first time we see it portrayed as a flaw. It's only a flaw now because up until this point the rest of the main 6's logic usually followed Twilight, was correct, or too outspoken to make Applejack stand out. When their logic was flawed, like in Bridal Gossip, Applejack's outspoken nature wasn't extremely apparent because the rest of the main 6 were equally outspoken. But now, and only now, Applejack has the nerve to say something that's wrong and on many ponies' minds. The only other pony willing to be equally confident is Rainbow Dash. Big surprise. The reason I've spent more than a minute addressing this is because Applejack's biggest criticism to the fandom is that she lacks character weaknesses. This scene speaks out against that notion, but it's been targeted as out of her character. See the problem? How can a character ever improve to us if we view them as bad and anything contrary as out of character? The answer is you can't. You have to look beyond, and you have to accept instances that may broaden your perspective. Now, Twilight, Discord, and Applejack were the ones that stood out, but other characters like Rarity and Rainbow Dash were portrayed nicely as well. The result of this was a lot of excellent character chemistry. Some examples include Rainbow questioning if Twilight's visions were true, Rainbow disagreeing with Rarity about every pony's dream, and Rainbow and Applejack arguing about the decision for Twilight to leave. I'm not saying that I want them to fight. More so I'm saying I want the characters to clash more. This can be anything from a simple disagreement to a full-on argument, and it helps us understand these characters in relation to one another, bringing out interesting character aspects we might have not previously considered. Okay, I've contained myself long enough here. Time to get to the best thing of all. History! As you know, history is my shit, so it's safe to assume that this episode earned my love quickly. First, we get an epic Nightmare Moon transformation and an insanely amazing battle between Nightmare Moon and Celestia. Besides its visual appeal, the battle between Nightmare Moon and Celestia explains 2 things in the Season 1 premiere. First, it explains how the castle of the Royal Pony Sisters turned into ruins, as we see Nightmare Moon tearing it to shreds. Second, it explains how Nightmare Moon bested Celestia so easily in the Season 1 premiere, since Celestia was far weaker than Nightmare Moon without the elements. After that, we get an equally epic Discord flashback, showing how Celestia and Luna stoned Discord, as I like to say it. This scene told a lot about the MLP world, mainly the elements of harmony, but that's for a later date. For now, I'll simply say that it was extremely clever because of how it ties into the current conflict. The seeds were how the wild plant spawned, but I thought nothing of it until later on. It was a brilliant idea to introduce such a seemingly trivial aspect in the second flashback, and then have it explored later in the episode. Yeah, other series do this more often, but this is MLP, and I never thought they'd do something like this. The last flashback involves the Tree of Harmony, which gives us a better look into where the elements came from and what they were originally intended for. This flashback serves a more direct purpose to the plot, and thanks to it, we get rid of the worst thing about the show, the elements of harmony. Yes! I seriously hate the elements of harmony, because you don't need a necklace to know you're generous, kind, or any other attribute for that matter. The elements had a bit of cleverness and magical mystery cure, but that's it. In general, they were just giant plot conveniences that had the power to solve any damn conflict. I don't even care that it wasn't fully explained that they didn't go back for the elements, just the fact that they're gone is music to my ears. In their place, we get a mysterious box with 6 keyholes, which will probably serve towards a season-long story arc. Double yes! And with that, I've covered everything that was really exciting about this episode. But I ain't done yet. Before this video, I heard several key arguments against this episode. I think now is the best time to blow up every single one. First, the Nightmare Moon flashback sucked because it was narratively pointless and diminished the conflict by decreasing it to 5 minutes. Yes, it was narratively pointless, but why should that matter? Whoever said every aspect of an episode has to have a narrative point behind it? Rather, I think you have to weigh the pros and cons. To how much of a degree does it hurt or help the overall product? I would say the product came out nearly spotless, and there's more that will be lost than gained by getting rid of the flashback. And yeah, it was 5 minutes, but so what? It showed one of the first fucking things ever mentioned in MLP. I'd rather have 5 minutes of utter amazingness than look a gift horse in the mouth. Second, the pacing of the second act was crap. It's Magical Mystery Cure all over again. The pacing was fast in the second act, but that doesn't mean it's bad. How would putting anything, even those 5 minutes from the Nightmare Moon scene, contribute to the episode at all? The second Twilight left her friends, we knew she was going to go back. If they added more time to the scene, it would have been Games Ponies Play all over again, where we're going through a painstaking scene that we already know how it will end. Third, the Deus Ex Machina potion, or as I like to call it, the cum potion. This is probably the most fair criticism, but it still doesn't take into account several factors. A. The Everfree Forest was being overrun, so we can expect Sakura to leave her hut eventually. B. If Sakura leaves her hut, she's probably going to take the most valuable items. This bears the question, how does she have the potion anyways? My answer is more headcanon-y, but it still has a basis of truth. Sakura is connected to the black market of magic items. Hold it. I say this because she always seems to have a potion for obscure things. Furthermore, if they didn't have Sakura come in with the potion, then they would have had to do something else to move the plot. And all the other alternatives are much worse. Such as going to a library. Yay! Haven't done that before now, have we? Oh wait, yeah we did. The Crystal Empire and Too Many Pinkie Pies. Lastly, having Twilight's friends tell her to leave is contrived. Yes and no. It was executed terribly, which makes it contrived, but the premise behind it is not contrived. The premise is that her friends would think differently of her, and that the dynamic would have changed. This sounds familiar, maybe because it is familiar. This was an enormous fear with Alicorn Twilight, and people don't fear something unless they think it might happen. Even though I didn't panic, I thought this was a possibility. And thanks Celestia it was brought up, because this is the bread and butter of MLP. Taking shitty, little girl premises and shaking them up to have real depth and meaning. It's not the norm, which would be Twilight becoming a princess and everyone is happy. Instead, Twilight has a new role to fill that challenges her friendships. This is a negative outcome, and these negatives have to be addressed. With all that was packed in this episode, from the characters to the history and the end resolution, this is by far the best two-parter to date, beating even the season 2 premiere. Yeah, I just went there. What now? What now? Bite me! Bad idea. Stop the damn credits. I'm sorry if my reactions came off too strong there. You're able to like the season 2 premiere more. That was just my anticipation for the comment section. Oh, and before you go, I recently hit 1,000 subscribers, so please give me your suggestions on my subscriber special. Alright, now cue the credits.